Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. This is Anthony Ray Bench, and I'm here with Dante James. Chris is actually at South by Southwest, and he didn't see the movie anyways, so screw him. We saw A Wrinkle in Time a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And we have some thoughts. First off, A Wrinkle in Time was directed by Ava DuVernay. Yeah. And it's based off of the 1962 classic children's novel by Madeleine L'Engle. I have no familiarity with the story. I was going in fresh, and I believe you were too.
Yeah, no, I went in with a blank slate. I had a little bit of knowledge from friends of mine who have read the book, but personally I had no knowledge going in what this movie was about.
Yeah, I had no familiarity whatsoever. I didn't even know this book existed, and the fact that it's so popular and so many people love this book really blew me away. It just came out of the blue for me.
Yeah, I knew people loved the book, or at least I knew that it existed for a pretty long period of time, but I personally never came across, my desk at school or at any point growing up. It's not like an Alice in Wonderland or one of the Oz books where we're just very familiar with the characters and that lore.
Yeah.
I think A Wrinkle in Time had a very niche audience, but those who loved it, and they stand by it.
Yeah, and I was doing some research after the movie because this movie is kind of a mess. And
it's a huge mess.
Yeah, I don't understand anything that's going on with it, and I wanted to look at the book and see if there was clarification. And the book and the movie are very, very separate. I mean, the book has centaurs and this religious kind of influence, kind of almost on a C.S. Lewis level.
Yeah, very much so.
And that was not in the movie at all. This movie is I mean, we talked about this a couple of days ago. It does the Disney thing that Disney did with Tomorrowland, and Disney's been doing a lot lately, where they do these big budget green screen movies, and they're kids movies, and they spend too much time setting up scenes where the kids are just in awe of their surroundings.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
They aren't doing anything. They aren't fighting anything. They aren't trying to discover anything. They're just like, oh, look at the pretty things that are flying around, and they're all bad effects.
But the same thing was done in the Chronicles of Narnia, but I feel like it was done better.
Yeah,
in that movie, like it was the same thing where they were, taken in awe of their surrounding, but the story moved and there was development, and they had, like you said, there was quests to get to a certain thing, and
a better villain. We didn't get a farty cloud villain.
Yeah, God, I mean, I don't understand. For me, I don't understand the choices that were made, because going back to the book, like you said, I feel like the movie was kind of gutted. It completely kind of gutted the book, where we should have got a lot more out of that movie than we got.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of give a quick rundown about the plot. Essentially, the main character...
should we do spoilers?
Minor spoilers.
Okay.
The main character is Meg Murray, played by Storm Reed, who I thought was great. I think the cast of this movie is fantastic, with one exception.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and she's this brainy, smart girl that had a really close relationship with her father, played by
Chris Pine,
who is a scientist trying to discover this way, and I don't understand the specifics of it because they really gloss over it, and I think a lot of it was cut from the movie because there are some scenes in the trailer that kind of have the characters explaining it.
Yeah.
And in the movie...
Which I think would have helped the movie out a lot.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. But he discovers this way to transverse through time and space using his mind, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really, really fuzzy. But he gets lost for 4 years, and Meg essentially grows up without her father. She becomes kind of, I guess, antisocial, withdrawn.
Edgy,
yeah, that's a good word for it.
Angry.
Yeah. And she has an adopted little brother named Charles Wallace, who is the worst character in the movie.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. What was his name?
Charles Wallace.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Charles Wallace.
Because you're going to hear that a lot in this film. You're going to hear Charles Wallace so much that your ears are going to fucking bleed.
Oh yeah, it's so bad. But he's like the smartest kid in the world, apparently. They really, really hammer that point home. He's one of those kids that just does everything that a child is not supposed to do, talks to strangers, wanders into abandoned houses. Like, this kid, if he existed in real life, would be dead. And we would all be better off for it. That's a horrible thing for me to say, but I don't care. He was awful.
And I got to say, the majority of the reason why, for me, the acting was not great, but we're talking about an 8-year-old kid, so there's a lot of grace there. But But the problem is that every time he spoke, you couldn't understand a word he was saying.
He had major mush mouth syndrome.
Yeah,
hardcore.
like I barely understood 2 words he said through the whole film.
Yeah. So he comes into communication with these 3 beings, and I have no idea what they are.
I don't either.
It's not explained. It's like apparently in the books it reveals that they're stars. They're like physical embodiments of stars that have traveled to Earth to help out our protagonists. In the movie, it does not. It's just like, oh, here's these things. We don't know what their powers are. We don't know what their limitations are. We know nothing. The movie kind of makes it up as it goes on.
And they really show up just really random, too.
Yeah. So the first one we are introduced to is Mrs. Whatsit, played by Reese Witherspoon, who was hands down my favorite character in the movie.
I completely agree. In fact, to me, she stole the show.
Yeah, and I usually do not enjoy her work. I'm not a big fan of Reese Witherspoon, but she was great in this. The second one was Mindy Kaling as Mrs. Who, and she has this weird thing that they drop almost immediately where she reads people's minds, she doesn't speak English, and she can only communicate through quotes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's cool, like, concept. And then they completely drop it. Like, it does not come up at a certain point in the movie. And
or she loses it in some weird way.
Yeah, it's
and
really...
they try to explain why she lost it, but it was, yeah.
The thing about this movie is it just makes up its own rules as it goes on.
I completely agree with that.
And that drives me insane. And, if I have to have another criticism on the acting, it belongs to Oprah Winfrey as Mrs. Witch. She was on snooze control.
She phoned it in, I say, half the movie, man.
Yeah, she was bad.
And here's the thing. I've seen Oprah act, okay?
Oprah
Winfrey
Purple.
can really act. The Color Purple. She's been in other films where, she's amazing when she puts it on. Mm-hmm. I feel like, I don't know, maybe she didn't understand the character. So instead of trying to, dig deeper, she just, decided to be Oprah the Witch.
To me, it kind of came off as a lot of actors let the costumes act for them.
I agree.
She had these elaborate costumes and elaborate hairdos, and I think it was kind of like, I'm quirky, I'm doing the Johnny Depp thing. And it didn't work. But essentially, they take the characters of Charles Wallace and Meg and another character who I forget because he was completely forgettable.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name right now.
You know what? I wrote notes, and I didn't even mention this character because he does nothing. He adds nothing to the movie.
Well, he's basically the...
I'm going to look him up.
Potential love interest of Meg. He's a guy that she went to school with that all of a sudden has an interest in her and decides to go on this wacky adventure with her for no known reason.
Yeah.
He barely knows her.
Yeah, his name's Calvin. He's played by the actor
Levi Miller.
Yeah. Thing about it is everybody's paying the character of Meg compliments, like, oh, your hair is beautiful, you're so smart, and everything like that. She does not know how to take a compliment. And it's not even like the awkward, like, thank you or anything like that. She just doesn't react at all.
Right.
And that drove me insane.
Yeah, no, she doesn't emote at all. And it's not to say that Storm Reed is a bad actress, because I think she did a good job.
No, she did a great job.
I just think in those scenes, I don't think she was directed very well.
No.
In those scenes.
No. It was probably with the intent that she was supposed to be overwhelmed by all the compliment and the praise and stuff, and she was supposed to be kind of awkward. But it came off as almost kind of rude.
Yeah, very much so.
And I'm not one of those people that, like, smile, sweetie, take the compliment or anything like that. But it's just, when you have these interdimensional witches, like, complimenting you, you just say, like, thank you. I am special, aren't I?
or at least at some point in the film.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't think it ever happened till like maybe the very end of the film, but even then, it wasn't really.
Well, by that time, honestly, I was kind of checked out. So
Yeah, I agree.
I wasn't paying attention. So they go on this journey, and they don't really learn any lessons. Everything that they do learn is kind of smacked across our faces.
I look, to not completely shit on the film, I felt like, costume-wise, the costumes were amazing.
They really were. Yeah.
Some of the sets were really well done. But going back to what you said about no lessons learned or nothing getting accomplished, I thought about that, and I thought, you think of some of your favorite fantasy movies, or adventure movies.
Yeah.
There's always like there's a testing of the hero.
Yeah.
And this film didn't have that testing. It didn't have that. It seemed like it took these weird shortcuts instead of letting the character grow.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there's this one scene, and this to me is the greatest sin in the movie. There's a scene which everyone has seen in the trailer where they end up in this weird, spooky suburban cul-de-sac.
Oh yeah.
And this is a scene that could have been visually amazing. It could have been scary as hell, and it's something that maybe they could have learned from.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, like, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely nothing happens. Like, what you see in the trailer is pretty much all that happens in that scene.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and you know what? Like, to hell with it. We can spoil it.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about this.
Okay.
So,
spoilers.
Yeah.
So, check out if you haven't seen it.
Yep. Spoiler music. They're in this cul-de-sac, and everything is just so rhythmically. Essentially, the bad guy of this is evil. Like, it's
not just evil, an evil cloud.
An evil cloud. Yeah, it's another Galactus fart bubble, like another parallax type thing. But what it does is it infects everybody's hearts and minds and turns them into drones. And this planet that they arrive on has been completely overtaken by this evil that they call It in the book, which is kind of funny because it goes back to Stephen King.
Yeah.
Or Stephen King took that from the book because Stephen King's It came out in the 80s, I believe. Anyways, so you have this fart cloud that's taken over this planet. And everybody's a drone, and they go to this cul-de-sac, and it's just really kind of like almost like 1950s aesthetic where kids are outside playing, they're bouncing the ball in rhythm, and it's just this really creepy scene in the trailer, and that's what sold me on the movie originally. Like,
yeah, no, me too, exactly.
I was so on board when I saw that, and I was so interested, and then I'm like, where is this going to go? Where is this going to go? It's going to be so creepy.
Well, and especially because, not to cut you off, but because they hyped up this other world as being so evil.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted this world to be just fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Because in contrast to the world they just left, which was full of color, full of,
flowers that talk.
Flowers that talk and all these, like, whimsical things. I felt like this world should have been the complete opposite of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sitting in the theater just waiting for, where is this going to go? Where is this going to go? The outcome of this scene is basically a mother comes out and says, "Sweeties, are you lost?" And the kids are like, "No, we're good." She goes, "Oh, okay." She turns around, goes inside the house, and the house, like, kind of transforms, and the planet shifts into something else. That's it.
Into a beach.
Yeah, that's it. It goes nowhere. There's no scary noises. There's no monsters. There's no robots. Like, I thought maybe, like, everybody was going to be a robot or something.
And see, that would have been cool. That would have been, okay, that's something scary. You know?
Yeah. Nothing. Like, man, it was such a letdown because that was such a visually cool idea. It really was, and it was such a waste.
I mean, ultimately, I feel like, for me to chalk, like, if I were to describe this movie to someone, I would say that it's basically a movie of a lot of missed opportunity.
Absolutely.
And wasted potential.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Speaking of wasted potential, Zach Galifianakis shows up.
Okay, and he was at least entertaining.
He was, and I was like, all right, he's on board. He's part of the crew. His role is like probably like 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
And he was he was so great. And
well, he was just such a break from the monotony of the film.
Yeah, and I was looking forward to him joining the crew.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's just the kids. Like even the intergalactic, like cosmic witches, like kind of bounce. They're like, peace, we're gone. We're not dealing with your crap anymore. Like,
well, it would have been kind of an interesting turn since, I mean, they weren't completely following the book anyway.
Yeah.
Where maybe Zach Galifianakis could have, gone with the kids
Yeah.
to that other world where the witches couldn't, or the stars couldn't. I keep calling them
Whatever they
witches.
are.
I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
But if he could have went with
The
them
movie
instead
doesn't
of
know
them,
what they are.
yeah, the movie has no idea who these beings are.
Yeah.
But if he would have went with them, that would have been an interesting turn.
Yeah.
In the film, like he can go where they can't.
Yeah, the movie really hammers home the fact that these intergalactic beings want to help them. What do they do really to help them? Like
other than taking them to the world itself,
yeah.
Not much.
No, they give them like these gifts, and
that weren't really gifts.
One of them was physical, like one of them was like an actual object, and the other one was like, I give you the gift of like all the things that are wrong with you. Like, and the character, one of the things I really kind of got a kick out of was Reese Witherspoon's character, Mrs. Witchett, or whatever it is. I'm kind of over this movie already at this point.
Mrs. Whatsit.
Mrs. Whatsit. She basically spends the entire movie just tearing apart Meg.
Yeah,
like, she's
she
the
does.
only character that isn't like, you're so special, you're so amazing. Because everybody else is just like really drinking the Kool-Aid with this Meg character, just like, you're so amazing.
Which is also, I think, why she kind of stole the movie, man, because she was so fucking hilarious in the way she would tear her down. And it's not that, you want to see a movie where, little girls getting torn down, but it's kind of warranted after a while in this movie.
It's like when you have that friend who has a kid, and that friend constantly is just like, oh, my son made honor roll.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, my son is preparing for college, and he's only 6 years old. It's like, shut up about your kid, man.
And here's another thing I felt like was missed from the film. It's like, okay, if you're going to hype Meg up as being this genius, this special kid, why not have her do things within those worlds that shows her genius or shows that she is special? Like, they did nothing to show that this girl was special through the whole film.
The movie fails at convincing us that she's special.
Yeah.
It just keeps telling us, the big rule about filmmaking is show, don't tell. And all this movie does is tell us stuff that it completely contradicts later on.
Yeah.
And then,
in fact, to me, it's like they almost did more to show how smart Charles Wallace was as opposed to, how smart Meg was.
Yeah.
Which I thought was the point of the film, you know?
So then there's a scene where they're at the beach, and we're finally introduced to, like, a bad guy played by Michael Pena, who plays, IMDb isn't identifying him as Red, but the book identifies him as the Red-Eyed Man.
Who was creepy.
Yeah, he was.
He was creepy as hell.
He was very creepy, and he's only in the movie for about 3 minutes. Another letdown, another missed opportunity.
Okay, I think we're going to talk about this for a minute, because we keep joking about the death cloud, but I think it needs to be talked about.
It needs to end.
If you think of some of the best villains on screen that you've experienced either as a kid or an adult, none of them have ever been a death cloud. They've always been a physical person who was horrifying. This movie had a chance with Michael Pena to be this, evil devil, type guy. And, if they just would have stuck with, even if they would have said, he was a man a long time ago, and he was infected by the it like
corrupted,
hundreds of years ago, and has become this Satan, if you will. That would have been something we could chew on, or something we could hold on to. The death cloud, there's never a resolve to that. There's never a satisfying end to a death cloud in a film. And when I say death cloud, see Fantastic Four, see Green Lantern, see all these movies where they don't actually use a physical being, but rather than just a gaseous, evil force that no one gives a fuck about.
Yeah, no. I agree. Like, what are you going to do? Like, stab a cloud? Like, outsmart a cloud? Outrun a cloud?
Yeah.
Like, it's...
And it's lazy.
It's very lazy. It's not... it's not visually interesting. It's not compelling. You know, nobody wants to see somebody have a battle of wits with a cloud. Like,
No.
stop doing it. You know, stop.
It barely worked in Doctor Strange, but even with that, I felt like it was handled better.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't the villain necessarily.
Yeah, he was almost like a secondary villain.
Yeah.
He only showed up briefly.
To stop the main villain.
Yeah. Dormammu, like, and he wasn't even visually. I would say there was more to him than just being a fart cloud. Like,
I agree with that.
He had more moving parts. He was more visually interesting. He was basically a blob, but you know, he wasn't a cloud. Like Parallax, Galactus, they were clouds.
They were clouds, absolutely.
Yeah, Dormammu, I would argue that he wasn't cloud, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, let's just stop that. Let's just move on.
Like, imagine if Darth Vader was a cloud.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think that this movie is going to do well. As a matter of fact, it's projected to not make back its budget.
Yeah, and for me personally, like, I'm you know, we were talking about this earlier, how I feel like everybody wanted this movie to succeed. Like, I feel like a lot of us who went in wanted this movie to be great. You know,
well, it's a movie that purposely went out of its way to involve a multiracial cast.
Yes.
And I completely support that, and I think that's great. But when you have instances where these kind of movies fail, you have people in suits working as executives pointing and going, "See, it doesn't work. See, it doesn't work." Everybody
which
just
is why
wants
I'm
to see.
so happy Black Panther did so well, so they can't keep saying that. You know?
Yeah.
Because this movie's not going to do well.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad it came after Black Panther. And
I agree.
And trust me, I hate the fact that we have to even compare these two movies because they're not even the same. They're not even close to being the same genre. But unfortunately, a lot of white suits, like you said, or white guys in suits, are going to be looking at the numbers. And, it's like, why even have to compare these two movies only because they both have a black lead? But people are going to make that comparison, especially because it's Disney. And, I'm really disappointed that it didn't kind of step up. And I think that's where this movie suffers from, is that if it just would have kind of stepped up a little bit more, it would have been a great film.
With the talent behind it, there's no reason for it to be as lackluster as it turned out to be.
Yeah. And I can tell you right now, the biggest problem most people are going to have is the same problem that me and you had, which was the younger brother. I think you can look past a lot of sins, but the annoyance of the younger brother is going to turn a lot of people off.
Yeah, he's a young actor named Derek McCabe, and usually when I review movies with young leads or young actors, I like to kind of preface my criticisms with saying, like, he's young, like they have room to grow. I mean, if
and even as a grown reviewer, you feel weird shitting on a kid actor like that, especially one that young, because like they're doing their best, and what experience do they really have? So.
But that's on the director. That's also on the editor to say, you know what, like, we have to find a better take.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And
we have to find, because there are strong kid actors.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of weird. I personally think Ava DuVernay is an amazing director, amazing filmmaker. For those who don't know her work, she did the Martin Luther King biopic Selma.
Selma was fantastic.
Which was amazing. And she did the Netflix show 13th, which is a documentary about the prison complex. So she's a very strong filmmaker.
Yeah.
Which, again, surprises me that she didn't catch, not just the acting, but just the sound coming from the kid. That's really the most distracting part of the film, is the fact that you can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
And as a director, you should be all over that shit.
I agree. I'm wondering, because, Selma and 13 are such different projects, and this is a kid's movie.
Right.
Maybe she thought that kids do sound like that. Kids are kind of hard to understand. Maybe she thought that added some kind of authenticity. At this point, I'm kind of at the bargaining stage of, like, why didn't this work? Like, I have to negotiate with myself, like, because, by all accounts, this should have been great. the cast was stellar. I mean, in the movie, like the cast is good. Everybody.
And it's not like you don't have
except for this Derek McCabe guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not like you don't have history to draw from, man. It's like there have been some amazing fantasy films that involve kids.
Yeah.
It just takes a little homework.
Dude, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Never-Ending Story.
Yeah, an amazing movie, and it's kind of weird. I feel like most of the great child adventure movies came from the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been constantly trying to catch up to that again.
Yeah.
If you look at Stranger Things, it's like the reason why you're into that is because it takes you back to that time.
Exactly.
When kids' movies didn't insult your intelligence and, they had a purpose.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, they acted like adults while also acting like kids. There was this perfect blend of that.
Yes.
The character of Charles Wallace acts like an adult in all the wrong ways, where he's spouting out these lines of dialogue that no kid would ever say.
Yeah.
No matter how intelligent he is. It comes out as forced, rehearsed, and just terribly delivered.
It comes off like a writer wrote it.
Yes, exactly. And he's acting like a kid in all the wrong ways with his delivery and the way he talks and, like his body language, how he kind of just throws his arms around and stuff like that. But if you look at Stranger Things, they act like kids in the appropriate places where, their interactions with each other, they're tearing each other down, poking fun at each other, but there's a loyalty.
And in all fairness, though, those kids are better actors.
Oh, yeah.
They're good actors.
Hands down.
Which, again, not to shit on this poor kid, is something, again, the director should have
picked up on. Should have been better about. Any last thoughts about A Wrinkle in Time?
You know what? My hope is that it does well enough to keep the suits at bay. I personally could not recommend it, which kills me to say because I wanted to love this film.
Yeah.
I've even tweeted, Ava DuVernay a few times, and she even liked one of my tweets about the film before the film came out. I'm definitely not going to hit her up on my link to my review.
Yeah, probably not.
But I wanted this film to just be like, a home run for her.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is going to be her big push. I think people are going to see it. It's something she can put on her resume, but it's not going to be the big push that I want her to get.
Well, I mean, this might end up surprising us. We are not the demographic for this movie.
Well, we kind of are, though. I mean, I wouldn't say like, look, if this movie were good, we'd be all over it. Like I think we're not the target.
Yeah.
This is for young girls. Maybe young boys. They'll probably sell a lot of merch.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, maybe we are kind of out of touch.
Maybe
with this, and maybe it'll be a hit with kids. Maybe this will be a movie where little Jimmy and little Cynthia, are begging mom and dad take them to see the movie 3 or 4 times. Maybe, but me kind of watching the movie and thinking like, if I was a kid, would I like this? I would say I would be too bored to like it as a kid, and as an adult, I just don't think it's strong enough to hold an adult's attention either.
Yeah, I think kids might like it. I think parents will be bored.
Yeah, I think
or annoyed at worst.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to be bored. Honestly, it's an absolute shame. But thank you, Dante, for doing the show and
absolutely,
for Chris. And let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's do it.